Last week, Donald Trump beat out Hillary Clinton to be named the next president of the United States. Since then, the country's had to come to terms with what that means. We'll be talking about Trump's victory, his policies, and more on tonight's Line of Fire. I'm your host, Esteban Bucios. With me tonight is Michael Wynn, a member of the College Republicans, and Karen Barahona, who is organizing a demonstration for tomorrow night here on campus. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me here for tonight's Line of Fire. First question, really simple. Where were you on election night?
I was at home playing video games. Once I saw things weren't going as planned, I put my controller down, kind of stopped everything I was doing to pay attention to the results that were coming in.
Mm-hmm. And Michael, what about you?
So my friends and I, we are politically active. We kept up with most of the campaign. And so what we did was we got together on Skype. We pulled up New York Times, we pulled up CNN, we pulled up C-SPAN, and we pulled up some of our favorite pundits, and we decided to watch the live stream as well as watch the live results. Mm-hmm. And we were genuinely surprised at what happened. We didn't expect all of this. Like we were hoping he would win, but we didn't think he was going to win. But it was a really surprising night.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to my next question. What was each of your reactions to what happens?
For me personally, it was a lot of different emotions. Sadness, even though I didn't really care for Hillary, just to see this man be elected. Anger, resentment, and overall just baffled that Donald Trump actually won.
Yeah, Michael, you said that you were surprised
Yes.
that this was happening, which is some of the sentiment that I've seen from other Republicans that I've talked to. Why were you surprised?
So my friends and I, we debate this a lot. We have looked at the polls. We have did our own analysis, and we have come to the conclusion that Trump would not have won just because, one, his rhetoric is off-putting to a lot of Republicans. I know a lot of Republican friends who stayed home. They decided not to vote for this guy. Mm-hmm. And we did not expect the results. We were all wondering what was going on that night. We were looking at all our pundits were confused as well. They were happy as well. But at the same time, what followed that happiness was also a realization of, okay, this guy will represent me for the next 4 years. Mm-hmm. This is actually kind of scary as well.
Right.
So it's going to be a long 4 years ahead. It was a lot of emotion as well. It was surprised, happy, but also really worried what is going to happen in the future.
Almost everybody who had worked on this election forecasted it was wrong. Almost the only person who may have said that this was possible was Nate Silver at 538. Even that was 30%. How do you think he won, and why do you think he won?
A lot of reasons. One big thing was Hillary completely ignored the demographic that got him elected, and that's white working class Americans. Mm-hmm. And you saw it in the Rust Belt. Traditionally, blue states went red. You saw her lost Pennsylvania, which has been a Democrat stronghold since 1988, and she didn't win it. Mm-hmm. And that's because she ignored white people. Mm-hmm. I think is a big reason why she lost. There's a lot of other reasons. I honestly see her as an almost completely unelectable candidate, just considering the baggage she has with the name, just what she supported over years, and what she's been doing the last 30 years as in politics. Not to say I didn't agree with a lot of things she was saying, but a vast majority of the people who were voting for her, including myself, either didn't believe in her or were compromising.
Right. Like a lesser of the two evils situation. Michael, why do you think that Trump ended up winning?
Why do I think he won? Well, my friend here touched on the important part that she did ignore the Rust Belt. She barely campaigned there, and I remember very clearly during the election cycle that people on my side, especially the Republican side, were wondering, why is Trump campaigning in Michigan, New Mexico, places that are traditionally blue? A lot of opponents were like, this guy's going to lose. He has no idea. We have no idea where the strategy is going. Right. But also a lot of people also underestimate how much people detest Obama's legacy in Obamacare. I think one of the big reasons why Trump won was, in effect, there was the rising premiums cost in Obamacare. A lot of people were really resenting that, especially after all the promises that Obama made. And that's also not including Hillary's own faults with the FBI, Comey reopening the case like about a week or two before the election. And generally people were fed up. There was also the media. If you look at the polls, there were 76% of people thought the media was there just to make money and not to actually properly report on the news. That ticked a lot of people off, especially when you have a lot of scandals of Hillary not being covered at all. WikiLeaks wasn't covered at all. None of the stuff was covered. But there was an interesting thing that people tend to also forget. In the polls, the only polls that showed Trump up were the tracking polls. The LA Times and IBP, I think that was the name of the poll.
Right.
Those were the only polls that had Trump up, with Trump up 2 in IBP and Trump up 3 in LA Times. Now they ended up actually being wrong because she won the popular vote, but they were the only ones that had him up. And I think the big reason why he also won was Clinton also didn't have her base show up. You compare Obama's elections and compare it to hers. She lost about 10 million Democrat voters from 2008 and about 7 million from about 6 or 7 million from 2012. So it wasn't that Trump was popular; it was that she lost a lot of her support.
Right.
And yeah, he touched on it that the white working class in the Rust Belt and the driftless zone, who went twice to Obama, refused to turn out for Hillary and went to Obama. Went to Trump.
Right. Which sort of brings me to my next question. Regardless of how people felt for either candidates, these two were, since people have been keeping track of approval ratings for presidential candidates, these are the most unpopular ever. Why do you think that people were so discouraged from these two potential presidents?
I think I'll start off with Trump, which is, I think he has the most obvious reasons was that he was campaigning on some rhetoric that was largely unappealing to people like me, minorities, and that was hateful rhetoric towards Hispanics, blacks, Muslims, LGBTQ, and a lot of his policies, like at the beginning when he announced, I don't remember if it was when he announced, but he said he wanted to deport all illegal immigrants, which is, like, to me, that's terrifying, considering I know these people, I know what they do, and it's scary to see a man who had such resentment towards my people. And a lot of people saw him the same way because he was running on this hateful rhetoric, on this fear-mongering campaign that worked for him, honestly, because a lot of people felt the same way. I think that's a big reason people don't like him, because he was running on this racist, fascist, and Islamophobic, xenophobic rhetoric, and that's why people didn't like him. Hillary, on the other hand, was people saw the true colors of the Democratic Party, the DNC, especially after the primaries, when came out that the primaries were rigged. There's a lot of examples of voter suppression, and we lost who we saw as the people's candidate, which was Bernie Sanders, who I supported in the primaries. And she's proven again and again that she's been pretty unelectable. She's run several times before and lost again and again, and it took her rigging the election to win the nomination. And then on top of that, she has such baggage with that name, especially with Bill Clinton is the one who signed the crime bill, which is one of the most detrimental bills to ever happen to, like, urban communities. And so that's another reason, is like that baggage behind her, and it's like Michael brought up, her email scandal was very unappealing to Americans, whatever they may think of it. A lot of people saw her as a criminal, and as you saw with the hashtags and slogans, the signs, people that thought Hillary should be in prison did not believe in her as a candidate. Some people compromised like I did, but a lot of other Democrats who supported Bernie honestly did not believe in her, that she represented them or would be good for the country, and they didn't like her. Yeah.
Michael, were those some of the same reasons that you felt uncomfortable with both of these candidates?
I think my opponent my friend has a fair assessment. He was a Bernie supporter in the primaries, Democratic primaries, but he ended up voting for Clinton because he saw Trump as a big threat. Me, in the Republican primaries, Trump was not my guy. My guy was either Rand or Cruz. They were my guys. And I paid attention to the primaries very closely. I saw what Trump did to my candidate. I saw what he done to all the respectable candidates out there. He destroyed them on a personal level, not even policy-wise. He was very repugnant to me, and I almost vowed in the primary not to vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why did people like me who find him so distasteful to come vote for him? Well, like you said, we saw that Hillary was a worst case. Like we prefer to deal with Trump than deal with Hillary. We saw her scandals. A lot of us have looked at her scandals and said she's actually a criminal. And we also saw that the DOJ and the FBI were with her and not indicting her for something that she's done, even though it was blatantly obvious according to federal penal law that she should have been prosecuted. But she didn't get it. So a lot of us were angry at the system for being so corrupt and to allowing to get away, that we decided to elect a guy who does not represent most of our principles. He is loudmouthed. He is morally reprehensible. We decided to say, look, we will reject Hillary and vote for Trump on the wild card that he might do something good. I talked to a lot of conservatives and Republicans, friends of mine, and we have the same acknowledgement that, yes, Trump is a bad candidate, and he is very highly unpopular. We also dislike his rhetoric, although I think he's being given too harsh cover by the media and not given fair cover of what he actually talks about. Instead, people get sound bites. Mm-hmm. So I think he was treated unfairly, but I also don't think it's unfounded to say that he's a little racist, maybe a little misogynist. I think that's not too unfounded, but I think the media drove it too far, and that's what pissed off a lot of people as well. People were tired of the media lying to them, blatantly lying to them. Now, I don't think these same voters will turn out for Trump in 2020 if it does a horrible job. I don't think so. But yes, that's the reason why a lot of us who found him distasteful decided to vote for him. Mm-hmm. We decided that Hillary was worse, and if we had the chance, I probably will not vote him for him. If there was a more tasteful candidate like Jim Webb, I'd probably just stay home or maybe even vote Jim Webb. Mm-hmm. But I would not vote for Trump again. If there was a more palatable candidate, I just can't.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's safe to say, like, well, this is a wild card, we're gonna still try it out and see what happens?
I mean, that was my logic. I was like, okay, he has compromised with some Republicans and conservatives. He has taken up some platforms that we hold dear, even though he flip-flops back and forth. I'm also going with the fact that he's putting his whole reputation on the line just for this. I don't think he is doing this without a calculation. So I'm hoping he sticks by. I am genuinely praying every day that he sticks to what he said he would do. If he doesn't, he's going to get kicked out in 4 years. He's not going to have the same support.
Kevin, on the flip side, how comfortable were you then for voting with Hillary Clinton?
I was torn, because I knew what I was voting for when I voted for her. I have the same beliefs. Like, by voting for her, I was condoning corruption and all these things that she's done is wrong. This same way, I believe that not everybody voted for Trump, voted for him for his hateful rhetoric, but you don't get to pick and choose what you get with your candidates. You vote for somebody, you get the whole package.
Yeah.
And so, regardless of what your beliefs are, I honestly do believe, like, all these things he said, even if you didn't believe in those things that he said, by voting for him, you are voting for those things that he said. You're voting because you're voting for the ban on Muslims. You're voting for the deportation of 11 million people. You're voting for Mike Pence. You're voting for everything Mike Pence believes in, as you've seen what all the things he's done in Indiana.
And in reference to his anti-LGBT laws.
Yeah. But like I consider all those things, and I just, after just social progress specifically, which I find very important to me, I feel voting for Trump was just impossible for me. I feel like voting for him is taking 3 steps back, even though he said he's praying that he does well. Me as an American citizen, I have to pray that he does well as well, because I live in this country and I will continue to live in this country. I'm an American citizen. I have to hope that he does well, because if he does poorly, things can get a lot worse. Right. Not only socially, as we've been seeing already, but economically, and like my livelihood, it could be in danger if he does a poor job. So I have to hope that he does well, but I hope that he doesn't deliver on the promises where he's going to ban Muslims, where he's going to deport 11 million people. But that's why I had to vote for Hillary, because that would be too heavy on my conscience, not voting, or voting for the other party or a third party.
Right. So I think it's safe to say that no matter who you voted for, there was definite baggage with both candidates.
Yes.
And now that we're a week out from this, we've seen protests erupt in almost every major city across the United States. Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, Oakland, Portland, even here in Dallas last week. And Kevin, you're hosting a demonstration tomorrow night here on campus. Why did you set that up, and why do you think this form of speech is important right now?
Because people more than ever need to be shown, like the people in the Rust Belt felt that after this election they feel left behind, me included. I feel me as a minority has been left behind because this man, I honestly don't believe he believes in me as a person or my people as people. I don't believe he believes in the black community. I don't think he believes in a lot of things. And the point of these protests are for this, and my demonstration included, is solidarity, that we will continue to speak up. We will not let this man walk all over us, not walk all over the progress we've made over the last 8 years, the last decade, the last 100 years. I feel like these protests is to show that we're together, and that show people who are afraid of what these next 4 years could possibly mean to them, their families, their friends, my family, that they're not alone in their struggle, and that people are there to fight for their rights that are being questioned now. And it's, like I said, it's to show togetherness and a willingness to fight back against the opposition and the status quo against them.
Right. Michael, what has your reaction been to what you've seen from the protests around the country?
Me personally, I do not understand why these protests are happening. Just because this election on November 8th just showed the popular vote for the presidential candidates. And while Hillary won the popular vote, Trump won the Electoral College. He hasn't actually been elected yet. The Electoral College will meet up on December 19th to formally cast their votes. Mm-hmm. So he hasn't been formally voted in yet. Also, the electors can vote as they please. While yes, they should vote based on what their constituencies and their states tell them to vote, they don't have to vote for the winner of their state. They could very easily vote for Clinton if they chose to. There's an online petition right now petitioning the electors, and there's like about 4 million signatures for them to switch their vote from Trump to Clinton if that's the case in their state. The one thing I don't get about these protests is that he hasn't done anything yet. I will understand if you protest if he has get into office and he does something very unconstitutional and something that is deemable to be protesting. So if he does something that's really bad, I understand the protest. But he hasn't been formally elected yet. The only thing he's done so far is to just appoint cabinet members. I don't think there's any reason to protest just yet. Now, protesting is your right to protest. I'm for that. But also don't understand is why the protesting has turned to looting and violence. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but we've already seen, and I don't know if the news has covered this a lot, but in California, Oregon, and a bunch of other places, there's like a lot of violence right now. Looting, burning, lots of stuff. And that's not conducive to a very good republic. If we're going to have civil discourse, we can't have people protesting a presidential election every time it doesn't go their way. Take, for example, when Obama got elected. I know for a fact that a lot of people on my side were very disheartened when he got elected twice. But I don't remember recalling to hear any protest by conservative Republicans when Obama got elected. And I also don't remember any violence from our side either. So when I see Trump get elected and then see the violence happening in Portland and other places in California, it really hurts me to see that he hasn't even got into office yet, and there's a lot of problems already. And I want to be able to keep a civil discourse, but also don't want people to be like losing their property, getting injured and all this stuff. I want to see what he does first before I start a protest, because if he does something wrong, I too will probably join your protest because he doesn't stand for everything I believe in. I also do believe that give him a chance to do his policies first, to see if they're actually good policies before we start protesting. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's very wise to protest a presidential election. One, the electoral college hasn't even voted for him yet, and two, he has done no policies yet. That's just my take.
Let's move on to the next question. The next question, for both the Democratic Party and the GOP, this entire race has reshaped how people think about them. What do you think this means for both parties going forward?
I believe what's this Serbian philosopher called Zizek, and he endorsed Trump for one. It was a purely ideological choice, and that was because he believed Trump would force both parties to rebuild completely, because as like all the polls said, nobody believed this would happen. He burned a lot of bridges with Republicans. The Democrats despised him, and a lot of people thought Hillary had it in the bag. And I do agree with him, because this is what I hope from this election, is that especially the Democrats, they have to rebuild if they ever expect to hold office again. If not, they're going to crash and burn and disappear. Same thing, I believe, with the Republicans, because he's basically pulled the rug out from under them and proved everybody wrong. And if they don't rebuild, they're going to lose their constituents and lose the faith of the people that vote for them. And his presidency is a testament to that, because if they do not rebuild, this will continue to happen, and they'll continue to have the rug pulled out from under them. They're going to continue to lose to people that don't believe in, people that can run on such horrible rhetoric, or continue to beat them out, and people are continuing to go out to vote for people like that, and it's going to just lead to a more polarizing world.
And Michael, on same question for the Republicans. What does this outcome mean?
So the Republicans. So the thing with us Republicans is that we've been used to this already. The only thing is the caricatures of the insults on us have actually become true in our nominee, which I am horrified. So I want to take us back to 2012 with Mitt Romney. There were lots of news about him and the biners full of women and the dogs strapped to cars. There's also McCain. They said he was going to bring the end of the world. There's also Bush. I think a lot of Republicans are already sick and tired of being called racist, bigot, sexist, homophobe. They're already tired of that. And so I think this election basically said that, and I don't think it excuses the fact that we picked this guy as our nominee, but I think they're sick and tired of being called that. And the one thing that the Republicans don't care about right now is just their image right now. Just because they picked Trump and they said, we voted for this guy because we're tired of being called these things, even though we're not. Although there are some things about Trump that is probably true. He's a little racist, probably. I can't say for sure. I don't know his character. But after being judged like that for like the past elections, people get tired of it. People do. And so the thing about Republicans is, with this election, we have the Republicans in control of the presidency, the Senate, the House, state legislatures, and basically they're the majority party. The Democrats have become the minority party. The thing about the Democrats is they put everything on the line to elect the most corrupt politician known in U.S. history, and they still did not manage to pull it off, even with help of the media holding them up. Despite all that, they still managed to lose. And what the Democrats need to do is to figure out, are they going to pull farther left, as in go into the more progressive far left zone, or are they going to pull back to center left? Because the thing is, there's also a lot of people who are really tired of the far left stuff, what's happening. They don't like what they're saying. They don't like the violence they say. They don't like the ideology, and they would rather have more center. Just like a lot of people don't want to pull the country more farther right. We'd rather be in the center. It's a very good compromise to have. And so the Democrats need to figure out, well, what do we do? Obamacare failed. His presidency looks really bad because if you look at it, from 2008, the Democrats had a presidency and a majority in the Congress. Now they have almost no control of anything. Like, it's so close that there's in Article 5, the state legislatures can pass amendments bypassing Congress. They're one state legislature away from actually just doing it right. That's how much Obama's administration has cost the Democrats state level. Well, yes, he still had control of the national level, but state levels, they just collapse in power. So the Democrats need to figure out where they want to go from here. Who are they going to nominate in 2020? Is it going to be a very far progressive like Elizabeth Warren, or are they going to pick a more centrist, center-left person? It's really up to them. And the Republicans need to figure out what their principles are going to be. Are we going to hold on to the conservatism, or are we going to pull more into the center-left?
Final question here. This has been one of the most contested and heated emotionally elections that we've ever seen. It may be an overstatement to say that the country has never been more divided. We've had, after all, a civil war before. But it does feel like a turning point in our politics and how we just treat people. How do you think the country as a whole comes back from 2016 and tries to heal after this?
Yeah. I guess that all depends on what he does in his 4 years. That depends on what his supporters decide to do. As you've seen, there is a sect of his supporters that are extremely far right and are now coming out from their basements per se and think it's okay to be racist in public. I think it's okay to hurt minorities. As you saw, we had an incident in Plano East where a girl had her job ripped off her head walking to class. That's the scary part. Are these people going to stop? Is he going to directly tell them not to do these things, tell his supporters that this is not okay? Is he going to go through with his ban on Muslims or try passing that? Is he going to go through on deporting 11 million immigrants? It all depends on what he does. He's setting the tone, because it's up to him to see what his supporters do. And it's also up to people on my side, on the left. Are we going to be open to discussion, open to compromise? Although I don't believe we should be compromising on the rights on social issues. Are we going to be willing to compromise on economic issues, on free trade issues, foreign issues? Hopefully we can. Hopefully we can stay open to discussion and discourse and find the right path for this country and find a way to come back from this election, from this presidency. And then also, hopefully, my side, like I said before, is open to discussion and comes out of that regressive state that a lot of people are in, because this regressive mentality has directly led to like the organic creation of what we see now as the alt-right. And if we do not fix that mentality, this country will continue to become more divided, and we might even have two more radical candidates in 2020.
Mm-hmm. Michael, same question. How do you think the country moves on after this election?
So a number of things. Number one, this election was a repudiation of establishment elites, but also a repudiation of what the media has been telling us for like the past decade, essentially. A lot of people are sick and tired of all this. About all being called a sexist, racist, bigot, homophobe, Islamophobe. They're tired of it. They're sick and tired of it. And so the thing is, a lot of conservatives are already tired of. They don't like Trump. So if we have good political discourse, then I think it's going to heal fast. The thing, my worry is that the alt-right. Yes, I know the alt-right exists, and what I'm worried about that is the alt-right might hinder political discourse, just because they have a political philosophy that is inherently racist just from looking at what they believe in. What they believe in is that Western civilization is inherently inseparable from European race. They believe that Western culture can only be held up by white people. That's problematic, because there are a lot of us, minorities, including me, who believe in the essence of Western civilization but don't have any white pigment on me. And so they are going to be a big obstacle, especially if Trump does not repudiate them and tell them to shut up. If he doesn't do that, then they're going to be gaining all the influence, and I don't want to see it happening. But also a big worry is that, besides from what you hear from Plano, there was also another story about this girl. She also said her hijab got pulled and her wallet stolen. That story she took back because they found out she was lying. And so a big issue I have is, if the regressive left does not stop their antics, and then there will be no compromise. What the regressive left needs to do is stop doubling down on their rhetoric. Let's take the Rust Belt here. These same white people who voted for Obama twice voted for Trump this time. And they've already been called a racist and a sexist and a bigot and homophobe for the whole election cycle. And then as soon as the election come out, we have Van Jones coming out calling this as white lash. When I was on campus, I heard a bunch of people just calling this a white supremacy thing. White people are scared of demographics. They're doubling down on this rhetoric that is unhealthy. If they don't stop this, it's going to be really bad in the future, where we're not going to have actual political discourse. We're just going to have tribalistic politics, where people will vote just based on what group they belong to. Like a white person just vote with another one just because they're white. That's what's going to happen. And I've agreed with my opponent here. If we can find common ground, we'll work to stop both the regressive left and the alt-right. But we need to stop them, because if we allow them to continue their rhetoric and dominating the discourse on both sides, it's not going to be healthy for the future.
So as we can see, there's still a lot of issues to be worked out. We still have a long way to go to January 20th, and then another 4 years after that. So we will see what happens. I want to thank both of you for coming on the show tonight. And for UT TV, I'm Asal Mustios. This has been Line of Fire.